Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome back for another episode of the Networking RX podcast. This is your host, Frank Agin, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. If you were with me last week, if you listened to episode 339, I talked about journaling as a form of helping you become more intentional with respect to giving and adding value to others. If you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to it. It's about 20 minutes. It's short. And I talk about this episode. I talk about the next time I was just talking, I would just share some ideas on really what you can be giving, what you can be doing to add value, what things you can do to be altruistic. People get tripped up. They want to help. They want to be more giving. They understand that there are benefits to it. They understand that if they're ever going to really get from their network, they need to give to it. But then they get tripped up. And the whole notion of the last episode was just kind of a mindset to help get yourself in tune to giving more. And this is just going to kind of be a quick review of the various types of things that you can give to help yourself become more intentional about giving. Again, the giving journal is just, keeping a journal day. This is what I did, Don't need to do anything more. You're not keeping score. You're not necessarily having to follow up to make sure things worked out. You're just kind of jotting it down so you can see what you've done, and kind of a little gamification of giving. You take advantage of the Hawthorne effect, which I didn't talk about last week. But what to give? What are some things that you can do to give? In the book I wrote, The Giving Journal, again, which is not, which I believe is still on Amazon. It might not be. If not, reach out to me and we, $5, I'll get it to you, including shipping. But at any rate, when in the book I talk about it, that when someone mentions the notion of giving, people's minds generally they conjure up images of reaching for their wallet, and they see themselves doling out money, cash, check, plastic, whatever, and they contribute to charity, and that's great. I'm not saying that's not giving if you're willing to do that. The thing you need to understand, you probably know this, is there's only so much money you can give. There's only so much you can do. Even if you gave it all away, there's a limit to what you can do. Well, there's a limit to everything, but there's really a hard limit to the amount of cash that you can be giving out. And while it constitutes giving to give money, that's not the end of it. It's not limited to the dollars and cents you bestow upon others. The notion of the giving journal and adding value to others involves the entire universe of generosity. And I look at it under three main headings or areas of capital. The first is the physical capital. And this includes our financial assets, money, real estate, stocks. But it also encompasses other things like cars, clothing, collections. And, so you have to ask yourself, okay, who have I contributed to recently? And doesn't really matter if it was out of a sense of obligation or you felt good about the cause. Ask yourself, okay, what have I done? That's one form of giving. I think everybody's in tune to that. Have you donated vehicles or other items to charity? We're such a consumer society. We accumulate so much that we don't use. I hate to throw things away. I would just as soon try and find a use for it. Even when I get rid of an old grill, I'll put something on Craigslist and let people know, hey, listen, if you collect scrap metal, and there are people out there that do that, maybe not listening to this, but there are people out there that make a living doing that stuff. I mean, I'm not saying it's a great living, but they're making a living. They're getting by on those monies, and I'm going to post it out there and let somebody take it, as opposed to just putting it in a landfill somewhere. But there's certainly lots of charities out there. There's people that you can give things to, cars, computers. There are people out there, and these are meaningful things for them. One man's trash is another person's treasure. And I'm not saying giving away bags of junk, but there are useful things that you have in your life that you are not using. Think about it. And those are things that you can do to help other people. Things that you can kind of get in tune to giving. I work with a lot of charities through the Charitable Roundtable, something I haven't talked about on this program, but I'm constantly talking to them about asking for those things that they need. We're putting on a program, and we need markers, binders, coloring books, whatever, and they let people know about these obscure little wants and needs, and people come through in a big way. One of these charities, Gary Chisholm, who's actually a member of AmSpirit Business Connections, he runs a charity called East Ohio Robotics, and one of the things they need are tools. And there's a guy who's involved with the Charitable Roundtable. Anytime he stumbles across tools, anytime Jeff Cashman stumbles across tools, he's got that giving mindset. He's grabbing those tools and getting them to Gary. Anytime somebody's saying, yeah, I've got all these tools I need to get rid of. Oh, I know where to get them. So Gary is overrun with tools. Maybe not overrun, but they need the tools in those programs. The STEM programs, the robotics programs need tools, and somebody's just got a socket set that they're not using. They're going to throw away otherwise. Let's get it to East Ohio Robotics. That's just lots of things. Golf clubs. Maybe there's a kid down the street who wants to take up golf. Mom and dad don't want to invest in clubs because, he may not want him to be golfing 2 months from now or 2 weeks from now. So here's a free set of golf clubs. That's certainly the first thing, physical capital. The second thing you can be giving is human capital. And that's your ability to accomplish things with the 24 hours you have each day. And it's not just your time, but it's your underlying talents and abilities. Have you spent time on the phone or email providing guidance or mentoring to somebody, or just listening? That's giving. That's giving. I talk to people all the time who need advice, need business advice, and I'm happy to contribute 5 minutes to somebody who needs some business advice on something. 5 minutes, it's you get what you pay for, right? But it might be just enough to steer them in the right direction. No, you don't need to hire an attorney for that. You can do this, or you should hire an attorney for that. Here's some names of people to contact. And those are things where you're giving to other people. Have you shared information you have or insights that you might have in a subject area? We all have talents. We all have talents. If you're a financial advisor, outside of the people who are in the office with you, you know a ton about financial advising. And while you might feel like you're giving things away, there's people out there who aren't going to hire you anyways. You don't want as clients anyways, but you can give them some insights and help get them started. And we all have information like that. We all have information that we can impart upon people to help them. Have you served on a volunteer board or contributed time to a worthwhile charity or civic cause? There's tons of opportunities out there. There's tons of opportunities to be involved. And these organizations, sure, they'll take your money, but your time, if you think about it, is much more valuable than the money. Yeah, they need the money to operate, do certain programs, but they need the expertise as well. They need people to come in and give them insights on, whatever your talent is. It might be bookkeeping. It might be writing. It might be graphics. But those are things that you can certainly share with other people. Have you taken the time to help someone with a resume or business plan? Again, something that you can help somebody with. Just coach them on their job search. Here's somebody I'd talk to. Do you know about these job transition groups? Those are all little things that you can do to be helping people and adding value to the world. Things you can mark down in your giving journal. And then the last thing is social capital. The first is physical capital, stocks, bonds. Human capital, our ability to work, our insights, our knowledge. And then social capital, these are all the people in your life that you know and are connected to, and they represent your ability to motivate, influence, and draw upon these people in your life for your benefit. So ask yourself, have you introduced someone in your network to another? That's a huge form of giving. And I've done entire episodes on giving and how the power of giving. And you really, if you know people, you have the ability to give. Because everyone in your network could benefit by meeting someone else in your network. You just need to stop and take the time to make those introductions. When people come on my podcast, I know there's other podcasts I can get them on. Um, Likewise, when I'm on a podcast, I know of podcasts that person can get on. They're generally looking to be on podcasts, and they're generally looking for guests. So it's sort of an easy way of giving. And when you do, and I'll let the people who I've referred people to, I'm not only benefiting, well, you're benefiting both sides. In any introduction, you're benefiting both sides. Have you shared someone's business plan or resume with someone who might find it of interest? Stop and think about it. If you're out there looking for a job and you give your resume to somebody, it doesn't carry as much weight as if I take your resume and I walk it in and give it to somebody, or your business plan. Hey, borrowing on my trust. And I did a whole episode on borrowed trust earlier in the year. Doing these things, making these introductions, touting other people is huge. I joke about it, but I tell people that I could promote them all day long and feel good about myself because I'm doing something wonderful for them. But if I self-promote for 5 minutes, I'm exhausted. Have you referred someone in your network to another? And that's the next best thing to giving somebody money is referring them to somebody who will, for the goods and services they have to offer. And we all know quality people in our lives. We all know quality people in our lives, and we all know people who have needs. People who need a good financial advisor, people who need a good realtor, people who need a good fill in the blank. We know these vendors, and to be able to refer these people not only benefits the person we're referring, it not only benefits the realtor, but it also benefits the person selling the house because they're finding somebody good, or again, fill in the blank, financial advisor, attorney, accountant, whatever it is. So the point is that I know this is a shorter than normal episode, but there's so much we can be doing to give to other people. You just have to stop and start asking yourself, okay, what do I have? What's the physical capital I can part with? Again, you only have so much money, but you likely have a garage full of stuff or a house full of stuff that you're not using anymore. You have human capital. You have the ability to volunteer and do meaningful things with the talents and skills that you have. And then you have the ability to introduce people. Tap into that social capital. Introduce people. Use your borrowed trust to talk up other people to get them referrals. So just some things to think about as you move throughout the day, and try to add to the giving journal. Hopefully you're putting together at this time. To wrap up, we are looking for franchisees for our system. If you know of an enterprising entrepreneur, sales rep, professional, please send them my way. The best thing to do would be introduce them to me via email. The type of people we're looking for are highly driven professionals or entrepreneurs who they strive to be a connector within their business community. They generally answer to themselves because they have another business that this will work well with. And they operate an enterprise that really puts a value on relationships, and so they look to network. Generally, professional service providers, coaches, and consultants. They're interested in creating multiple streams of income. They have a reasonable track record of leadership and success. We're not looking for somebody who's fresh out of college or new into the business world. Certainly, they need to have a handle on their personal financial situation. They need to have the ability to buy the franchise, which isn't overly expensive, but then certainly operate it again, which is not overly expensive. But they need to have that ability. These people are potentially an author, speaker, or thought leader on topics related to relationships, business networking, or leadership. These are people who will make more money from a growing number of professional connections, and at the same time, they make money building those professional connections. If you know of somebody, or if you are somebody, reach out to me using the email at the end of this podcast.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.